So last time I made this piece of fiberglass out of 4 layers of 1708. And it's going to be the thing that stops the door when the door closes so it doesn't swing through to the other side. And it's going to be glued, a little bit of it's going to be glued to that bulkhead, the door frame. And I've got the door pretty much in the position where it's going to be, where I have the right amount of overlap on the frame, the amount that I want to be able to glue up to the door frame. And so I marked the edge where the door would be, and now I'm using this stick to give me a constant offset. The flange will stick out that far for the door to hit it. And I've got a little bit of fiberglass resin on this shower door that I was using for the layup. And it's interesting, you can hear the difference in sound when the glass is clean. So there's a lot more of a gap than I want here. And then it gets tight in other places, like in this corner. And there's a lot of gap over there, and then it gets tight over on this side. So this is the first round of trying to straighten that out. And I'm just basically sanding a little bit off in the areas where I think it's too tight. I'm also using that glass mirror that's sort of a picture frame to check for straightness, especially along the edge where the hinge is going to be. Both sides of that need to be as straight as possible and parallel when the door sits in the frame the right way. So I'm spending a lot of time basically checking, sanding, and adjusting this one edge where I made the wood inlay for the hinges. And eventually I get it almost straight and pretty much the way I want it. There's plenty of gap here, but then it gets a bit tight right there, and there's plenty of gap, a little bit tight, gap, pretty not, it's okay. A little bit of a lump to grind there, a little bit of a lump there. This looks pretty good. There might be a little bit of a mound there. No, I think it's on this side. Yeah. More gap than I'd like there. And then really tight up in here. And then a really nice gap, but then tight in here. A nice gap, a little tight there. Maybe more gap than we need all along there. Except where it's tight here. And again there. So something should be done about that. And then there's this other issue. Well, here, let me separate these for a minute so we can talk about the other issue. There's places where this little strip that I glued along doesn't fully attach, and I can actually get my nail in there. Here's a little piece of plastic from the honeycomb, so maybe that makes it a little more obvious that that can fit right in there. But yeah, there's some gaps along the edge, so those will need to be filled in as well. Otherwise, closing this in with that little strip of chopped strand mat, that works out pretty good and is very light. I mean, it is by far the lightest, strongest method of closing in the edge of this core. So that's that little tab of fiberglass that didn't stick. And there's a couple other places that I'm going to fix. After getting any pieces of core that stuck up in the way out of there, I can paint some resin on and lay some chopped strand mat, some more of those little strips that I cut out, and fill in that edge, and then I'll have to sand it smooth. In the past, I used to make what I call super putty, and it's kind of a glue made out of fiberglass resin and this aerosol. It's a brand name is called Cavasil. It's fumed silica and it thickens the resin. And I used to add this 1/4 inch chopped fibers, and they look like that. They're little pieces of, like the chopped strand mat fibers, that are about 1/4 inch long. And that would add a lot of strength to, that's the super part of super putty, because it adds a lot of strength to it. It's almost like a regular fiberglass layup. To go in those little cracks at the edge, I want something finer, and so this time I'm using this 1/32 of an inch milled fibers, and this material is completely different. It's like very fine powdery sand almost. Very, very fine. Jeez. And yeah, you want to wear a mask around this stuff. But the 1/4 inch was always almost a little furry on the edge because fibers would stick out, and also it was kind of coarse and you couldn't get it into like a really fine crack like I'm having to deal with. So this will make something that's more the consistency of toothpaste, and it'll go into a very narrow crack a lot better than the 1/4 inch fibers, and it'll still be not as strong as if I use these fibers, but it'll be a lot stronger than if it was just thickened resin.